And what terrible, sad and tragic news, because it involves at least two families. And the sadness, certainly the statement by Huw Edwards' wife, certainly speaks to that. And one can only imagine what it's like in that family tonight and their children. But also there is this rather troubled young man who we understand has problems with drugs. And he obviously is not on good terms with his mother and stepfather. So at least two families involved. It ought to be remembered that only 10 days, as far as I can calculate it, before the mother of this young boy contacted the BBC with her first complaint, Huw Edwards was the lead commentator on the coronation, on the King's coronation. And of course, as we all know, he was the go-to man. He was the face of the BBC. He was the Richard Dimbleby of our age, as far as the BBC were concerned. So one can understand how seriously they should have taken it. They should have taken it a lot seriously a lot earlier, I might say. But here we have it. And this poor man... Yes, go ahead.
Michael, you say, talking about where the BBC goes from here, they've issued a statement saying that the police have confirmed they've completed their assessment, not taking further action. We will now move forward with our work. That means an internal investigation, I presume. What do you think that looks like in reality for our viewers and listeners? What does an internal investigation into the facts at the BBC actually look like?
You're talking to the right person, because I know all about them. And what happens is that the bigwigs in the various departments who may have a say on this will get together and they'll call together the facts such as they are, and they'll ruminate for a bit and they'll talk around it and they'll decide what remedy, if any remedy, there is to take, and how they should alter their procedures. But the thing about this is that it's been too little, too late. They've been very heavy-footed. This should have been on their radar immediately after the mother first brought it to their attention. But as we understand it, the Director General, Tim Davie, didn't know until last Thursday about this. Now, that is appalling, because the Director General isn't just the Director General. He's the editor-in-chief. He's therefore responsible for everything in the way of news and current affairs emanating from the BBC. And the first job of the editor-in-chief is to know everything. There are things that he'll never publish, but he needs to know everything. And we need to have somebody at the head of the BBC who's a journalist. And I'm sure Tim Davie's a very nice and charming man, and I'm sure he was probably a brilliant marketing man, but not for one day in his life has he ever been a journalist. Now, any journalist, and you've had some around you sitting there, would have known from the start, as soon as the name of Huw Edwards was mentioned in this context and then was built upon, red lights should have been flashing. And I can only think that it's poor staff work on the part of the people who should be advising Tim Davie in this. They should have been on top of this. They should have dealt with it. And at the last minute, we hear that poor Huw is in hospital, where probably is the best place for him.
Yeah, and for the foreseeable future as well. Just, I mean, not having to actually read that much between the lines of what his wife said, to be fair. I mean, clearly he is and has been in a bad way, and he's going to be in hospital for some time, for the foreseeable future. His wife there, Vicky Flynn, alluded to the fact that he has previously suffered from depression. She goes on to say that he's been treated for severe depression in recent years, and as one would imagine, the events of the last few days have greatly worsened matters. Again, a serious episode, she says. Look, Michael, there is going to be an inquest on top of an inquest on top of an inquest here, because we're going to end up with the Sun being made to account for a variety of different things. No doubt the Sun will be able to put up a robust defence for the right of a free press and the right of public interest, etc. Then you're going to end up with potentially the Met Police, although they have now come out, why did it take them so long to discount anything? They would probably argue they're doing a very thorough job, and they've come out now. You will obviously have the inquest into Huw Edwards himself, because there are a lot of different aspects to conduct here. Criminality was just one of those aspects. But as you were alluding to as well, possibly the biggest inquest of all will be the BBC's handling of this. If they've known about something for 2 months and then waited until the Thursday, presumably when they had a phone call to say, we are splashing on this tomorrow, and this is getting that, for a man who has had mental health issues, will no doubt have been a catastrophic way to go about this for Huw Edwards.
Well, you've summed it up brilliantly. The BBC is ponderous to the point of elephantine on occasions like this. It's always behind the curve. It's always reacting and never taking the lead. I don't have a PhD in Huw Edwards studies, but I have noticed that in recent interviews, he has been talking about being unable to sleep. I think he has mentioned depression. He said some really rather odd things in interviews, like, when I retire, I want to be Piers Morgan. I certainly, whoever Piers Morgan is, whatever station he's on. But these are strange things. At least that's what I thought from this rather straight Welsh church background, Welsh-speaking bastion of the BBC. And as I say, he was their face, and very much so, and very dependable. And there he is, taking command of the news desk, as you do so admirably. So it is, whichever way you look at it, it's a little psychodrama all by itself.